Chapter 5, Leading Edge Follow-Up Interview with Alex Collier. A planetary update. The following material is a follow-up interview conducted with Alex Collier in regard to the Andromedan paradigm. For reference purposes, the initial interview was in ~90 and the main feature, ETs and the Global Connection, was in ~89. The interview was conducted on Sunday, May 5, 1996. Val, perhaps it would be best to start with a general update from you, both on the planetary side and the extraplanetary/dimensional side. AC, well, let's see. A planetary update. There are more reptilians than there were before. There are approximately 20 of the Royal Draconian line in the planet at this time. Val, the Chiakars? AC, yes. An underground facility was apparently built for them in the mountains in Madagascar. It is something that Morani seemed very concerned about, because they don't know exactly why the Chiakars are here. They usually don't fight their own battles. On a galactic level, several humanoid colonies in the Hercules cluster have been admitted to the Andromedan Council. Val, what about the biological situation on the planet? AC, the viruses that are going to be hitting the United States are going to be blamed on Africa. It of course is not true. I am sure most of your readers know that already. Val, it's no secret that all the viral and plague outbreaks have always been organisms that are involved with known government biowarfare programs. AC, yes. The interesting thing about the Ebola virus is that there is an extraterrestrial gene that has been added to it. Val, I have heard that the same thing was done by factions in the government to create the HIV virus. AC, yes. I don't know what extraterrestrial race provided the gene for the recombinant HIV virus, but I know that the biological material that has been added to the Ebola was given to the government by the humanoids from Sirius B. I don't know if it was one of their viruses that they picked up somewhere or whether it is actually from them. Val, well, giving thought to the question of who would want to biologically decimate the planet, the governmental factions have their agenda, but the reptilian race comes to mind as a contender who might in fact have orchestrated this biological weapon exchange. AC, this is true. There are a lot of different races that would love to have this solar system totally secured, primarily because of Saturn and Jupiter, and the Earth is a prize because of all the water on it. But, if they gave certain human beings on Earth the viruses, and those human beings in turn go ahead and use them, it doesn't totally absolve them of culpability, but at the same time it does relieve them, the aliens, of the idea that they actually did it to us. This is the really scary part, you know. Val, this attitude is not uncommon even here on Earth. It is an interesting parallel to the attitude of some organized religious and political groups who behave in the same way, having other people do their dirty work. Ultimately, however, they cannot escape the karmic debt incurred by doing these things. AC, well, you're right. More on draconian activities with human children. Val, referring back to some of the things you said in the ETs and Global Connection, you noted that there were some 1,800 reptilians inside the Earth that have been responsible for some 37,000 human children disappearing. Have you acquired any additional information or clarification relative to this statement? AC, you mean, what they do to the human children? Val, well, any clarification beyond that simple statement relative to what is happening? Ac, well, I can tell you two things. You're not going to like this. Val, I'm probably already aware of what you are about to say, but go ahead. AC, well, my understanding is that aside from the fact that they eat human children, what they do is that they drain fluids from the brains of children while they are in fear. Val, I have heard of this before. It is to get that substance, which to them is like a drug. AC, it's like a narcotic. Val, from the adrenal and pituitary glands? AC, yes. Apparently the government has tried to copy this substance, but they can't, so they have this agreement with the reptilians down below. My understanding is that the primary agreement is that they will allow the world governments to mine gold in exchange for the human children. Val, it is an interesting parallel to a movie I saw called I Come in Peace, which featured a rogue time traveler from an alien race who came to Earth and killed humans just to get endorphins from their brain while they were in terror. Another alien was sent dimensionally to stop him, because if he was successful in accumulating endorphins and returning with them, there would be no end to the slaughter of humans, as others would come. Galactic drug dealers. AC, there's more to it than that. The excretion has some of the genetic coding within it. This is really what they are after. Apparently they can absorb it, but their bodies don't produce it. There is a chemical that we have in our brains that no other life form creates. It is a result of the fact that we have 22 genetic lines within human DNA, plus the primate race. No one can yet copy this chemical yet. As far as them being galactic drug dealers, I have never heard them referred to as that, but it's interesting. Val, well, it was only in reference to that movie, but the fact they would raid another species and kill them to acquire this substance. Of course, humans do this to other species, don't they? AC, well, they have this attitude that because part of their genetics are within us, that they have a right to do this. The Greys apparently have the same philosophy, and I can remember in one of the things that you sent me that Valo also says that. I would like to offer a different perspective in that it is just flat wrong. They don't have a right to do it. Somehow they have convinced the world governments that they have this right. Val, of course, the world governments are within the paradigm of neo-Darwinism and genetic engineering, and it is no surprise that they would gladly accept this statement as pseudo-confirmation of their own position and rationale. AC, yes. Val, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch for these people. AC, yes Val, and apparently the reptilians use human children as sex slaves, which is something I have heard periodically over the last few years, even in conjunction with governmental child sex rings that were mentioned in the book Transformation in America by Kathy O'Brien. AC, what is interesting is that the reptilians primarily enjoy human males in this way, which is really disgusting. Val, well, the whole thing is really disgusting. Let's change the subject. AC, yes, please. Update on benevolent ETs on Earth. Val, you noted one time that there were about 1,500 benevolent ETs on Earth that were relatively indistinguishable from ordinary humans, and that you were at the time not privy to their purpose for being here. Have you discovered more relative to this? AC, well, in truth, I know exactly why they were here. But I have been told to really not talk about it. I will tell you that the original number of 1,500 in 1987 is now down to 1,231. And, I understand that in the next 3 months another 97 will leave. Val, then I guess the number will just decrease steadily until August 2003? AC, yes, the last bunch will leave then. Val, so, what I can get out of all of this is that these alien humanoids are intelligence operatives who monitor the state of affairs on Earth. AC, your perception is very accurate. I feel like I have broken a promise. Val, no. If I already have the logic to figure things out, then there is no word broken. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to deduce why they are here, I suppose. In the last interview, #90, you noted that the anger coming up in young people was because of the unlocking of DNA that is releasing energy that they don't know what to do with. I asked, what are the teens to do? And you replied that you would have to get back to me on that. AC, well, I have asked them if they would outline a workable system of expression that would be positive and beneficial, not only to the teens, but to the adults. Morani said that the next time he spoke with me that he would have an answer. As soon as I find out, I will get that information to you. Val, great. In the last interview, it was stated that the Greys captured and boxed human souls, and that Morani did not want to answer the question of what happens to these souls. Has Morani changed his mind about that yet? AC, no, not yet. I don't think it's because of Morani. He is always reluctant to say he can't answer something, so I think that the directive not to reveal that information comes from a higher level. I don't know if they are concerned that the information might generate more fear on this planet. It could be that they are just trying to figure out a way to let us know. Val, in order to deal with these kind of issues, perhaps one of the other things Morani might want to dwell on besides the question about what are children to do to cope with this energy constructively, is maybe come up with an effective series of thought patterns to enable the processing of information in a neutral way. AC, however, I think most readers of the leading edge are pretty much past the barrier of dealing with things only in terms of fear, and people who have read it over a number of years are already at the point where they can pretty much take anything and process it constructively. That will come in the future, since it will be delineated anyway. Val, you noted that we are all to become teachers when the Earth passes from the 4th density to the 5th. Are you able to elaborate on that? AC, yes. Essentially, what is supposed to happen is that when we move into 5th density, many of us for some reason are going to find us back where we started with our extraterrestrial origin. Val, in alien humanoid bodies from whence we came, before we occupied bodies here. AC, exactly, and with all the experiences here. According to Morani, they will all be recognized as teachers and as a group that has gone through a first ever transformation. More on the Syrians. Val, on a recent Art Bell show, a fellow named Robert Gust Wolf discussed a Native American perspective that the only two ET races that were attempting to help us were the Syrians and the Andromedans. I wonder whether you had any comment relative to that? AC, my understanding is that those from the Sirius system are trying to be beneficial and assist, because they feel responsibility, and that those who colonized Sirius B system were originally from Sirius A. Those from Sirius B have come here and really messed with our heads, and they are the ones who originally gave our government the Montauk technology. They have the same belief and brain patterns as those from Orion. Those from Tau Ceti are also very much involved. Nobody knows exactly what the Pleiadians are going to do yet, but I will share this with you. Those that live in the system around Alcyon, some of them cannot be trusted, as they have hidden agendas. Those from Tegeta, I am told, have a very clear objective, to maintain the idea of freedom. Just because a group is labeled Pleiadians doesn't mean they are here to help us. People confuse that issue. Know them by their works. Those from Cygnus Alpha are here. There is a group from Arcturus that is trying to help. Those from Procyon, who have been liberated, are trying to help. They are pretty gung-ho. When the Andromedans arrive on the Prime Directive. Val, well, all these species that are trying to help are limited by the Prime Directive. AC, yes, they are. Val, so, one would presume that they are waiting for a certain threshold of a feeling of wishing assistance to manifest itself, and that the threshold of feeling would overrule the Prime Directive and allow things to happen. AC, well, they are waiting for 10% of the consciousness on the planet to awaken and ask for some kind of intervention. That may not come until after. They may come shortly after Hale-Bopp gets here, or after the world government and ETs try to stage the second coming. Val, obviously, Morani and all these people have the ability to travel in time and know everything that is going to happen. AC, yes. Val, so, they must know whether or not, and when, the 10% threshold is reached. AC, well, it will be reached no later than August 12, 2003. Val, so, relative to any world government games, relative to Jerusalem and the emergence of the Maitreya scenario toward the end of 1996, wouldn't that paradoxically contribute toward the movement toward a 10% threshold? AC, yes, it will. The regressives are going to mastermind their own undoing. But, for some reason they are so desperate to try to maintain control of us, and for some reason they don't want to let our particular solar system and the other 21 go. Val, what could that reason possibly be? AC, I don't know, but there is a reason. There is more about us, as humans, that I don't know, than there is that I do know. Val, do you have a particular perception of a relationship between HAARP and the Montauk projects? AC, no, but I know that the Andromedans are very concerned about Montauk, because the humans who are working with this technology are being given specific coordinates in space, and the regressives that are here can use that same technology and leave here. The whole point is to track where they are going, so they do not continue to propagate their belief systems. Val, if the universe itself is being jacked up several frequency levels, then it doesn't matter where they go to try and get away. They will be stuck in the same boat. AC, well, this is true. But, my understanding is that the idea is to limit the damage they do. Val, does this have to do with this 357-year period of tyranny which the Andromedans are trying to prevent? AC, yes. Val, well, obviously they must know that it was prevented if they can travel in time. That sounds like a paradox. They must know that they either were or were not successful. Here is where we start to drift into parallel lines of reality. AC, yes. Time travel and changing agenda. Val, this comes into the next question that I have. At one point in your talk in Dallas, you indicated that according to the Andromedans, our very next spiritual leap in consciousness will come from the quiet science of archaeology. Yet, it was also stated that many of the Tao's Greys here and presumably the government and other people, are time travelers who tweak history. If in fact new truths are to proceed from archaeology, just how true can they be if literally everything is subject to change and manipulation, in terms of archaeology consisting of tactically planted evidence? AC, well, look at this idea. When they first started this manipulation, they had a specific agenda. But here in this particular linear year, 1996, their agendas have radically changed. They are faced with survival because there is another threat to them. It is no longer just a matter of controlling Earth humans, but it is also the fact that there are other alien races in our atmosphere and in our solar system that are here to help and to limit the damage. Their main concern now is not so much totally manipulating us, but trying to get what it is they want, or came here to get, and get out of here. Plus, you have this frequency change. All I had to tell you is that the Andromedans had no idea that this sound frequency emanation from the black holes was going to happen. No one foresaw this. It was an instantaneous phenomenon that affected past, present and future all at once. Well, now, despite the fact that the Andromedans can travel outside of space-time and have a viewpoint of a probable line of reality, when the sound frequency emanation happened it created an entirely new probable line of reality. They couldn't have foreseen it. AC, yes, and a totally different set of probabilities. I don't know about all of that. Well, so, is it at all likely we could all wake up one morning into a completely different reality? AC, I think it's possible for some beings, but I don't think it's possible for all of us. I think that it is going to be a gradual transformation of consciousness. We are all essentially going to change our minds and create something else, and it will be voluntary and more of a group effort. A part of us will awaken and we will know what it is that we have to do. I don't think it's going to change totally overnight, in an instant. They have never said it would happen that way. Otherwise there would be no need to give us specific dates. It is supposed to be a gradual process. If they are right, then the reason there is third density is because we created it. We have to implode it responsibly in such a way where a certain set of circumstances have to occur so that we can allow those who have chosen not to evolve a chance to create their space to continue to evolve. Well, from the point of view of the regressives, then, they would be escaping something like a realization by the mass population of how they have been hoodwinked. AC, yes. They would probably have that kind of perspective. Well, I mean, they can't go anywhere in this solar system in the third density. Could they go to a different density? AC, I don't know that it is an option they now have. I am pretty sure that fourth and fifth density are quarantined, because I know a group of Greys tried to dimensionally skip out, and they were caught. Their ship was 21 miles in length. They were going interdimensional when they got caught, so I don't think that's an option. Parallel Earth reality systems and implosion. Well, there is apparently a parallel Earth that is one or two overtones above this one, that is actively participating in the subjugation of this particular overtone, together with world government factions like the NSA and Montauk Technology. So, presumably, with the uplifting of the general vibratory resonance on all frequency levels, these other overtones containing regressives would be lifted upward to a point where they would have to cease that line of thought. AC, that's a great question. Nobody has ever asked me about this. My understanding is that even as far back as 1931, a parallel reality had been created. It was something that one of the societies in Germany was involved in. Perhaps the Vril. They were playing with something. Anyway, my understanding is that any parallel realities having their origin out of the original timeline are going to implode back into the original timeline. Well, so, there is a main line of reality into which they would implode. AC, basically the line of reality that we ourselves are familiar with. Well, and the New World Order? AC, it's going to manifest itself, but it is going to be very short-lived. The reason it is going to manifest itself is that it is a reality above us. Well, in another overtone. AC, yes. So it's going to manifest itself here because that reality will be imploding into this one. Well, so, one of the keys to the apparent perception, in a linear sense, of when this would happen, would be the coincidence of the collapse of the planetary magnetic field and the increase of the resonant Schumann frequency at a certain point in linear time. AC, well, that would be around August 12, 2003. It's supposed to get really weird here. I mean, like, really weird. The Union of American Republics. Well, I once read a book called Illuminati, a white book with a disclaimer in front, that described a social situation where all the bad guys were discovered by the public and put into their own concentration camps. The public became enraged and sequestered the government. AC, well, I have been given a probability about a scenario just like that, and I have only been given this probability relative to here in the United States, that those that have betrayed us as a people, as a nation, as a race, that are in this country, that we consider to be our own countrymen, will be hanged by the neck in front of the Capitol building. The United States of America will no longer be called the United States of America. It will be called the Union of American Republics. Well, so, having said that, what exactly is the probability? AC, at the time I asked, it was over 90%. The people will change everything. Well, how comforting. Could the phenomenon going on in Texas right now with the secession be the beginning of this process? AC, yes. I think so. What is interesting about that is that I have been told just recently that Bahrain was going to offer gold to Texas to back their currency. Now, it will be interesting to see if that actually happens. The regressives want to divide us against each other. That's the Orion paradigm. Well, so, along with this 90+% probability, was there a linear timing involved? AC, the probability then was that this would occur in July 2004. Well, it is interesting that the apparent new implementation date is 2002, 1 year short of the Andromedan Council expulsion order for all extraterrestrial influence, and that presumably if this ban destined for 2003 takes place, then somewhere between 2002 and 2003 you would have a mass exodus of bad guys, both human and otherwise, and that this would permit a total collapse of the regressive regime, allowing the Union of American Republics to form in 2004. Intelligence agencies living in a synthetic reality? AC, yes, it would. But again I wish to stress that the probability was 90+%, not 100%. You know, Val, the people who are working in a government like the NSA, specific renegade groups in the CIA, the KGB, the Blackguard. There is a lot that they are not being told. As much as they think they know, they do not know. I know that they are way in over their heads. They are just being used, but they are still implanted with these extraterrestrial belief systems, these Orion prejudices and illusions of grandeur that they are the superior race. I feel sorry for them in a way, because they just don't have a clue. They have already separated themselves so much from reality, that they are living a completely different reality already. Morani has said that the regressives could not be rehabilitated. They are already on a completely different course on a consciousness level. Val, this is where you get the growth, through intent, of another three-dimensional pocket in reality in which these people will find themselves until they can get it together. AC, that's correct. Val, and it's the intent and the resonance that creates. There will be a point after the collapse of the probable realities having their origin in the original line into the original line, where probable realities then can easily be created, and this is the process that allows the formation of these resonant reality structures. AC, that's right. Val, so, there's a null point between the point of probable reality line implosion and the 0 point where things begin to move through a fourth and a fifth. Is that accurate? AC, yes, that sounds accurate. Creation of probable reality streams. Val, what have you gleaned about the structure of the creation of probable realities and its relation to original time streams? What does it take to create a probable stream of reality for a planetary culture? Is it a general planetary emotional trauma which creates a diversion in creative reality streams? AC, my understanding is that it all comes down to intent. If each individual person holds a particular intent which they freely have created, and 10% or more of the planetary population holds that intent at any given time, you literally pull that reality to you. It all focuses on intent, and that is something that we are all individually responsible for. The cost of freedom is responsibility. We have not paid enough attention to creating reality. We are caught in the idea of just experiencing it. Special children now being born on Earth. Val, it is an interesting parallel to your statement that with the Andromedan culture, education is paramount, whereas with our culture distraction is paramount. AC, yes, the children here are learning nothing. They are not learning how to think for themselves. They are being taught what to think, to spit out facts and belief systems, and to consume. This process puts the idea, the intent and the emotion outside of themselves, as opposed to the process of turning that creativity inward to create better selves. That is something that the Andromedans teach their young, is to better the self. Now, we have some really special children being born in our world, and it's going to be the kids that are really going to make the major shift on a consciousness level to help us. There are a lot of people who are absolutely not prepared, and they are not going to be able to deal with the new realities. The kids are, and I have been told that many of the children who are coming to this world now already have a third strand of DNA. They are aware, but they don't know how to put it into words. It's kind of like living in a dream. When it all falls into place, they are going to teach us what they know. They are just going to know this stuff. Helping the teens of today. Val, getting back to one of the earlier questions, relative to young people not knowing what to do with the energy released by changes in the DNA structure, is it possible for you to glean, even on a superficial level, what these teens should do until Morani gives a more definitive answer? AC, I would say that these kids need to be able to have groups that they can go to and just talk about what they see, what they dream about and what they feel. Because it could be that a lot of these kids feel something totally different than what it is they're being told is reality here. Val, which would be about par, really. AC, yes, I think on some level we've all been through that at one point. The kids today are very different, especially those that have the third strand. They know more than us, but a space has to be created to allow them to express it and not have it be judged. Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means we don't understand it. Val, a rose is a rose. AC, right. That's my only guess. Teens are committing suicide at an alarming rate. Val, and elderly people as well. AC, right. Everybody wants to get out of here, and that's a scary thought. Val, in your understanding, with the change in frequency and density level, for those people who end up taking that route to get out of here, what happens to them? AC, I don't know. I will ask the question. I know there is no hell. They don't burn or fry for that act. That is not a reality. I don't know if they go to a way station and get healed and then go someplace else, or come back. I don't know. Thoughts on upcoming Earth changes? Val, Earth changes are something people are interested in, presumably to give them something to do while they are waiting for other things to happen. Is there any perspective relative to any specificity about this? AC, well, I know that they could start at any time. Both coasts will be in jeopardy. Val, we are about 50 miles from Mount Rainier here. AC, you might find yourself moving inland. Val, we'll be up to our ash in ash. AC, I think it will be a lot higher than that, depending on how tall you are. You know, it's the Earth reacting to the frequency shifting into the consciousness. She is literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. She wants to go up, but at the same time she doesn't want to destroy us in the process. I am amazed at the intensity of intention and attention to detail we have here. Val, the Germans would be proud. Attention to detail. AC, yes, but we've lost the essence with our focus on the detail. The Andromedan concept of the Creator. Val, how do the Andromedans view the concept of the Creator? AC, their conception of God is that they really don't know what it is. Even those on 11th density going through this shift to 12th don't know. They are having a hard time explaining what is happening to them because their current mode of communication doesn't explain the experience they have just gone through. The Andromedans have always referred to it as the isness, which is an essence that holds everything together. Val, and it is coincident with love as a frequency. AC, yes it is, and this whole space was created in a space of love. It is the primal creative force. The Andromedans really love us, and I think their interaction with our planet has caused a shift within them. I know that Morani and Visace have both become more emotional and expressive, and I think that this is rubbing off on all the other races that are here helping. Val, of course, emotion is the basis for creation. AC, yes it is, but a lot of the races are very technical, and we are in our infancy when it comes to that. Yet, look at what we have created without the technology that they have. I have before that the Andromedans are extremely awed by our ability to create things. You know, when you leave the house how everything stays there, it doesn't dematerialize. Our intent to create. All the detail in life. They are in awe of this. Third density is like Jello to those above. Val, I guess if I were to ask the Andromedans anything at this point, in the spirit of things that are to take place on this planet, it would be what they could offer to all of us as guidelines in order to assist the population through these changes, based on their knowledge of what is to come. I trust they will do this. AC, yes. Val, I have heard that physiological lifespan is shorter in space. Is this at all accurate in your understanding? AC, no. Val, I suppose it depends on the resonant frequency at which you exist. AC, there you go. Val, on the recent Art Bell program, when the astronauts were being interviewed, one of them revealed that to him, space looked shiny like patent leather shoes. I found that to be interesting. Can you see the stars in space? AC, that's a good question. If you were in a space that contained no atmosphere, it would be mostly black. Of course, some of the stars we see in space from the Earth no longer exist, since the light takes so long to reach us. As far as their comment on shiny nature of space, that is not something I have experienced. That would almost suggest a holograph. Val, oh no. As if they weren't in enough trouble already in the space program. AC, that would mean that the shininess is bouncing from inside. Val, do you have anything else in mind that you would like to say to everyone at this point? AC, I would like to just stress this, I think. The singular most important thing I would like to stress to people, from the point of all I have learned and all that I still need to learn, is that the bottom line is that we should not turn on each other. We all created this and are continuing to create this,